Hi, this is Penny from the Cascade branch of Penn District Library. It's Tuesday night and it's 6:30, so it's time again for What We're Reading. My fantastic guest tonight is Joyanne. Joyanne works at Kent District Library and has been a dear friend of mine for many years. In fact, we have actually been in a book club together. So we have been talking books for a while now. And tonight, Joyanne, what are you reading tonight?
So I am reading, or I finished The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. We just discovered how to say her name.
We did. We just figured that out.
I mixed, I have some Post-its marking pages.
Good.
No folded down corners.
That's right. Is it a library book?
Yes.
Definitely.
I know.
So tell us about it.
So The Night Watchman takes place in the 50s on Turtle Mountain Reservation. And the main character, his name is Thomas. He is the night watchman for a jewel-bearing plant. And all throughout the book, I was picturing all of these Native American women, some men, but mostly women, sitting around all these different tables and stations, setting semi-precious jewels into like jewelry settings. But it's like a wheel-bearing plant. So
What?
it's like for wheels, like bearings that are in your car wheels,
Okay.
and then other equipment that would use bearings. And there are semi-precious metals and pieces that are packed in those to make them do their jobs. And
Really?
different semi-precious jewels and metals do different things. So you have them for other jobs, little pieces that those fit in. I know, I had no idea. So I'm reading this whole book thinking these poor women are going blind and having, carpal tunnel because they're putting together jewelry. No, it's like car parts. Anyway,
Wow.
I know.
So is this like turquoise they're using or?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Or some other types of jewel, but they called it that. And then the night watchman's job was to make sure that none of the precious metals or semi-precious jewels would get stolen overnight. And so he would have to keep himself awake to punch his time card on the hour every hour, because they make sure that's how they made sure he was doing his rounds. So it's before, circuit television or, recordings and things like that. So Thomas, one of the things he does to keep himself awake is he reads a monthly newsletter kind of thing, and it's like tribal news kind of the situation. And he discovers that a new bill has been written in Washington that is designed to remove his tribe from their reservation lands.
This is in the 50s?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he reads it out and he tries to figure out what do they mean? What are the implications? And everything just kind of boils down to this is the end of his people, because his people are so tied to the land, and they've been pushed and they've been shoved and they've been, boxed into this small space, really. And all of a sudden, the United States government has decided that that land is now valuable. So the people living on it are no longer valuable, right? It's just awful. I'm not laughing because it's awesome. I'm just
it's hard for us to believe that this was the perspective.
Yes, absolutely. So he talks to a few elders in his tribe, and they try to make a plan how they want to figure out how to address it, how to fix it, how to stop it from happening. And everyone, of course, sees the implications for their own little family grouping and then for the whole tribe, what this really means. And everybody's cash poor. They might have land, but the land is hard to work. And it's valuable to them because it's where they live. and where their
That's right.
community is, but why would the government want it, and why would they break a treaty that was supposed to last as long as there's grass and as long as there's wind in the trees, kind of thing.
Now, this
And
wheel-bearing plant, is that owned by the tribe or is that?
it's not owned by the tribe, it's an investment in the tribe. And so one of the strategies that Thomas employs, he writes letter after letter after letter to all of the communities that surround the reservation and either support the Native Americans who live there, so social services, or the Native American population goes out to work, right? So there's a lot of social economy taking place. And one of his strategies was to write to each and every one of those organizations or businesses or services and say, hey, if we're gone, what happens to your job?
Good
And
for
then they were like,
him.
wait,
Did it help?
yes, it does help. It does help.
Don't give away the ending.
I'm not going to give away the ending. It does help. It strengthens his position. And so you meet then other individuals who are part of this community that he loves, and you get to learn their stories and how they survive and how they depend on one another, and how it does get a little mystical in some respects, but that's just how their spirituality is really interwoven into all of the experiences that they have individually and as a tribe and a community. And it just makes the book that much more beautiful and amazing to experience as a reader. And there's one young man who is training to be a boxer. That's how he sees his life outside and away from the tribe. He's going to be this successful boxer, right? But Native Americans face racism just like any other brown or black skinned person in our country. And so sometimes his fights would get planned and then get canceled once they realize that, oh no, you're going to be fighting an Indian, right? But he wouldn't find out till he would arrive at the place where he's supposed to have the fight. So in order to kind of make it up to him for one of his last ones that got canceled, they plan sort of a benefit fight, and the proceeds are going to help the delegation that Thomas puts together go to Washington to testify on why this bill is a horrible idea. And it's so amazing to see the tribe all come together, and different groups say, well, I will cook this and I'll provide the baking goods, to sell. And they were like, well, I don't want my girls involved with holding up signs, to go in between the rounds of the fight. So you've got to think of a different plan. And so they came up with a special bell, and they had somebody who was really good at speech making, talk about the rounds. And really that was a really neat feature in the book. And it talked about, in some respects, how the young people in the tribe felt that there were just a lack of opportunities. So they would go to the bigger cities to try to get work, and how often they would be taken advantage of because they didn't necessarily have experience and know how to not get conned into doing things that they shouldn't do or be involved in. And how then it was sometimes really difficult to come back to the tribe because you feel like you've got too much experience that doesn't match the tribe. And so you would bring something back bad that would be bad for people. And so that was a struggle for them. But then they were trying to, the tribe knew that if they didn't have a place to come back to, then the hope that the youth would come back would be gone. So that was another reason for them to continue to fight against this bill. And the author based the story, Louise based it off of her grandfather and his life experiences. And he wrote the letters and kept a diary of all of the steps that they took. And then he used that to help other tribes that had been slated for this same type of treatment.
Really?
So, yeah.
And was he a night watchman?
He was the night watchman, yes, in the
Okay.
plant. Yep.
I mean, her father?
Yes, her grandfather was.
Grandfather, yeah.
Yep.
And I've read other Erdrich's book. I just love her. I love the Roundhouse.
Yes.
And I'm doing if anybody wants to join me, there's going to be a Zoom book club in November. We're talking about Plague of Doves.
Okay.
So look at KDL events for that. Have you read that one?
I haven't read that one. I've read the Roundhouse and I really liked it, but I saw from the list the one that you just mentioned, Plague of Doves, looked like a really good one too. So I was going to try it.
I'm excited to read. Now, just coincidentally, I mean, we did not coordinate. Joanne, you'll testify to this. We did not coordinate. And because we had no way to, because I read Book of the Little Axe,
yes,
which is the American Library Association and Overdrive, who handles our ebooks, got together and said this will be the book that we're all reading right now, September 14th through 28th. Everybody can check it out at the same time, which Overdrive usually doesn't do. So Book of the Little Axe by Lauren Francis Sharma. And so that's why I was reading it, because everybody could check it out. We're all going to talk about, I love the community feeling that gives us. There's such a lack of a feeling of community right now because all of us are really so separate, and to all be reading the same book and be able to talk about and identify just really. So I jumped on this, and coincidentally, this book opened up significantly earlier than the book you're talking about. We're talking about in 1830.
I saw that.
In the American, in the American West, in the Crow Nation in Bighorn. So you're reading, okay, it's 1830 in Bighorn, and everything perks up. You're like, okay, something really bad is going to happen. Which, starts you off with a feeling of foreboding, and then it switches from there. The characters are Rosa and her children, her 3 children, and her husband. She is the number 1 wife. This is a Native American community. There's a number 2 wife.
Yeah.
And so you've got a lot of different cultures coming together. You've got everything I'm bringing to it, what I would perceive to be a culture. Then you've got Rose's culture, and you find out that her son feels out of place because he knows his mom is different, because his mom doesn't look like the other Native Americans. She's actually African American.
Yeah.
And she is from Trinidad.
Yes.
So then you move to 1796 in Trinidad, which is right after the slave
revolt.
Right, in Santo Domingo.
Yes.
So which has got the people in Trinidad all worried. And then you're talking about her parents, and her father is Black and the grandson of slaves. He's always been a freed man, but because it's 1796, he knows that just because he's always been a freed, he was born free as a free person. He worked as he became a blacksmith. He was the best blacksmith in town. He had a good business. He saved his pennies. He started farming too. So he's a blacksmith and a farmer. He built his house with his own 2 hands. Yeah. They talked about the craftsmanship that went into the stairs and everything. It was beautiful because he took the time and made it beautiful. Yeah. He knows if the wrong ship pulls in, if the English decide to take over, or if the French get nervous or they're worried about an uprising happening here, that somebody could walk in and make him a slave again, make him and his family. Yeah. He's got 3 children too. Rosa is one of them. Turn them all into slaves, take away everything they have. Yeah. And just imagining in my culture that somebody could walk in one day and say, okay, you and your family now are all owned by me.
And it's over.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Rosa is the young daughter here. So she's gradually getting to the point now in the book where she's about to leave Trinidad. And, it works backwards on one story and forwards on the other, so they're going to meet in the middle.
Meet in
And
the
I'm
middle.
not done yet because that's what I'm reading right now. So it's been a really great. I mean, it's also one of those books that and we were talking about this before, Joanne. It was one that takes time
Yeah.
because every one of these characters has their own kind of dialect.
Yes.
And some of them, like, for example, she meets someone who's half Native American and half he's not sure. His father died. His mother, he thinks maybe his father like got his mother pregnant and then kicked the Native American out. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all of he just ended up there and he's parentless. You know what I mean? And his language is he speaks French a little, he speaks some Native American languages, he speaks a little bit of English, and kind of the author does a great job, Francis Sharma, of kind of getting across this amalgamation of what his language is. I mean, she's writing in English, but when you hear his voice, you can tell that he's kind of without a home language, a home culture.
Yeah.
He's kind of lost and doesn't know where he belongs.
Yeah.
The character is one of the saddest characters I have ever read about. And he meets up with Rosa. The two of them get connected. So it's just amazing to see all of the cultures kind of collide together and be completely different than what I know and my experience in both the time and the place, and the differences in how the Native Americans treat the African American,
Yes.
who they say her child Victor isn't having the visions he's supposed to have. He goes on 3 vision quests and he doesn't have a vision. So they're saying so the elders of the
Maybe
tribe,
he's not really. Yeah.
the elders of the tribe say maybe the mom needs to take him back to see his roots, to kind of try to figure out his own spirituality.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. I love to talk about it with someone who's read it. So everybody can read it now on Overdrive. Go and check it out right now.
I have it checked out, so I'm definitely going to read it. That was going to be one of my next ones. So yeah, I'm excited. I really liked the idea of Trinidad and Crow Nation here, and how those two could possibly, one, have really met, and
Right.
two, how you could treat both of those very different cultures, and yet, at least here in the United States, would still be marginalized, and disenfranchised and unhomed in
Right.
respects.
And they all end up in this huge melting pot of the Wild West, which we don't consider a melting pot, certainly not anymore.
But it was.
Yes. People coming from all over, but certainly still Mexican people living there.
Yes.
And the French.
Yes.
And, just Spanish, Native American. I mean, it was just, which is not how I picture the West at all. So it was a really fascinating read. I love a read that teaches me things.
Yes.
Not only about people, which I think every book you read teaches you about people, but if it can teach me about my history and my culture and other people's culture, that I really enjoy that as well.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
So Joanne, you and I were talking before about how prolific you are, because tell me when you do your Instagram book talks.
So I hop on Monday nights around 8:00 in the evening, and generally I try to talk less than 10 minutes, but sometimes there's a book that I just really have to get people hooked on, and so yeah. But
all of my guests ask how long this takes, and I always say, I don't know, as long until we're done.
It takes the time it takes till you run out of words.
Hopefully some people watch us to the end, but if not, take what you can.
Right, exactly. And sometimes, because I have pets, or if I'm outdoors, sometimes the birds will close me down because they're chit-chatting, and they're like, "What are you doing back here? This is our space." So yeah.
So go, if you have an Instagram account, look for Kent District Library and watch Joanne. She reads a book a week at least. She's fabulous and knows some good recommendations.
Yeah.
So both of us also frequently answer personalized picks requests.
We do.
Joanne, tell people what those are.
So personalized picks, you can go to the recommendations section of our website, and then you can ask for a personalized picks. We've got a little form that pops up. We have them available for youth and teens and adults, and you just answer the questions, give us a few details about what you really like to read, whether you're willing to let us push you out of your comfort zone a tiny bit, or whether you really just want to stick with what you know. And then we'll send you some titles, usually 6 to 10 titles for you to try and explore some different themes and some different authors.
Yes, we'll send you kind of a web page with the titles on them so you can see the covers and click right into our catalog and put them on hold. So it's fabulous. You'll get them from me and from Joanne.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Next Tuesday night at 6:30, I have Kent County Treasurer, at least until the election, Kent County Treasurer, Ken Parrish. So please join us and find out what Ken's reading. I hope it's not about money.
Right? I know.
Maybe it'll be good. I don't know. But everyone have a great night and I'll see you next week.
Bye, Penny.
Bye, Joanne. Thanks for coming.